Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to play around with some pump pliers. Now these pump pliers all have smooth jaws, and really what we're going to do is just compare a few things. If you're looking at these, you'll notice this is probably the original smooth jaw pump pliers, known as the Channellock 415s. Then later they changed the model a little bit. This is the Blue Point version, but there's still a Channellock version available. Wilde has a version, Milwaukee has a version, and then Wilde also has a 90-degree version of the smooth jaw pliers. So we're just going to take a look at a few different things with these and see which one's better. Is the old better or is the new better? We'll check a few things like hardness, how hard they can squeeze for the amount of effort put in, and jaw size, that sort of thing. So to get started, I thought we'd check the weight on each one of these, and they are all 10-inch pliers, and we'll see where the weight comes in on each one. Start off with the old school 415s. They are basically 12.8 ounces. The newer variant of the 415, 14, just about 15 ounces. The Wilde, made in US, about 14.5. The Milwaukee, now these are made in China. They weigh in a little bit more, 16.6. And the Wilde, I believe this is made in China. I didn't see any manufacturing marking saying. We tipped the scales on that one. The scale tips, I believe, at 20 ounces. Yes, somewhere around there. So, 90-degree being the heaviest, not overly surprising. You can kind of see there's more metal there. Now, which one's the hardest? To do that, we're going to get out our hardness files, and we're going to just take a guess that we should be around an HRC 55-ish, 50 to 55, and we'll just see. Definitely scratch in with that. So we're going to check this on the side of the pliers. The inner face seems to have mill scale. So these are actually pretty soft. I can dig into them with an HRC 45. These aren't all that hard. I was actually kind of expecting to see something harder. The other, yeah, we can dig in with that on a 45. Let's check these newer Wildes. Everything is digging in with a 45. They were skating with the 40. Now the Milwaukee seems a little harder. Yeah, the Milwaukee definitely seems harder. And the 90-degree Wilde seems harder. So these are around a 45. Yeah, this is much harder. There we get something. So the 90-degree Wilde is somewhere around a 60, and the Milwaukee is going to be a pretty hard face. Yeah, somewhere around a 60 as well. So these two are definitely harder than these. Now, how about how deep you can reach in with them? And we'll check that with our scale here. And for each one, we'll just put the scale right into the flat, and we get just around an inch and 3/16. This one here, inch and 3/16. Not surprising, the Channellock didn't change a whole lot over time. Now the Wilde is going to be a little deeper, pretty close to inch and, it's definitely inch and 3/8. It's right in between inch and 3/8 and 7/16. The Milwaukee has an inch and a quarter of flat. It can get back further, that you could get the inch and 3/8, but it has an inch and a quarter of contact surface. And the 90-degree Wilde is about the same as the other Wilde, just over, that's actually under, it's just over inch and a quarter. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put the pliers in our vise that we, if you recall from previous videos, we made this load cell vise that we can install, and whenever we apply force to the vise jaw, we can see how much force. And then we're going to have this load cell that we squeeze with the pliers, and we'll see how much force is applied by the pliers compared to how much force is going in. So now what we're going to do is just start tightening the vise. Average person has about 40 grams of force, and we should be able to see there's about 40 grams. Back it off a little, there we go. So that's about 170. So 40 grams in, about 170 out. That's how much squeezing tension we have. On the old school 415s, this is the original variant of the 415. In fact, it doesn't have all of the tongue and groove marks all the way up it, you can see. Now let's go to our 90s to 2000 vintage 415s that are actually Blue Point. Let's see what we can get on these. And we're going to apply some force here. Go right to about our 40 grams. And we are right around that 170. So we're pretty close with our value, which is good. That kind of verifies the method. It's a very similar plier. And all we're doing is we are going to, I basically center up the end of the load cell with the end of the jaws of the pliers. So now, if you remember, the Wilde has the longer jaws, so I'm going to think that this might have more leverage. We'll line it up just like that. But let's see what we get. We're going to have to open it up just a little bit more. The other interesting thing about the Wilde is that it has round grooves in it here. Maybe that will be less resistance and give it the ability to turn better as well. I guess we're going to find out. So now we go to here, and we're just going to apply our 40 grams of force. Not exponentially higher. It's going to be a little bit. Okay, so we're right there. So we are quite a bit higher. The Wilde has 217 grams of force with 40 input. Which is interesting. So the Wilde had the most so far. Let's get the Milwaukee adjusted to be the proper setting for squeezing. And we want to go one closed. Okay, so we've got our Milwaukee lined up just like that. And we're going to want to squeeze it to our 40 grams of force. So the Milwaukee is actually pretty low compared to everything else was not expecting that. The Milwaukee has about the same jaw size as the Channellock, but that is significantly lower with that input force. So the Milwaukee was shockingly lower than even the Channellocks. And now the Wilde 90 degree, let's see what we get. We have it set up here. And we're going to get it into the vice jaw. And we're just going to give her up to 40 grams of force. Now I was wondering what was going to happen here because this appears to have a fair amount of leverage. And that is kind of proven here. We got almost 300 grams of force out of this 90 degree plier with 40 grams of input. So that is very interesting. I figured this might have some lever arm stuff going on here. So I kind of figured the 90 was going to be the strongest. And just to show we can get quite a bit of force by hand. My hands aren't quite what they used to be. But we can get that amount of force out of it, which is really, really interesting. Okay, so there we have it. We just did a little playing around here. We're testing the theory a little bit with some practicing on the load cell here. The idea was to figure out how much force is exerted by the pliers when you squeeze them. So kind of a shocking result. The Milwaukee was the lowest. The 415 Channellock was moderate. The Wilde had an improvement. Now, this is a longer jaw, and they use the rounded component here, so there could be less mechanical friction. And then the longer handled 90 degree Wilde was considerably more force than the others. So if you're going for a fair amount of force with a pump pliers, the 90 here is the way to go. Kind of a big surprise that the Milwaukee was as low a number as it was. And that's just one of those things that you gotta test it to see. So there's our results. Let me know in the comments below if you've used any of these for projects at all and you noticed something similar. Did you notice the Milwaukee's slipping before a traditional pair of 415s? Have you used the Wilde? Either of them? That's essentially what we're seeing here, is this would slip before this, and then these would have better adhesion as well. Like as you're squeezing, you're exerting more force, so it wouldn't slip as soon. So kind of interesting results. I was expecting the 415s to be the lowest and the Milwaukee to be somewhere here, but it must be something to do with how they're getting leverage out of the tool that makes it so weak. So this will slip before any of the others. This will be the strongest. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Kind of an idea I had to play around with something and just have a little bit of fun. Got this load cell and I wanted to play around with it. Always enjoy playing around with the load cell vise. So this is a way that we could test repeating force on handles and compare things. If I did everything by hand, we wouldn't know the applied input and what we're getting with the output. Now, being able to consistently measure the applied input also opens us up for other forms of testing, So, all that said, hopefully we can get into more stuff in future. But let me know, have any of you guys used these? I know there's newer pliers out on the market that have a little bit better stats as far as this type of work. Most people would probably be going for a pair of wrench pliers or plier wrenches over these, but these were an old school option, and I thought it would be fun to test them out. So as always, thanks for watching. Have a great day.